The shadows of the past. In the village of Tanzala, a small community nestled between the rolling hills of the savannah, there was always a deep sense of unity. Tanzala was a place where elders held great respect, and everyone knew everyone's name, even the children who still played in the dust and the elders who spent their days seated under the shade of the ancient baobab tree. People from all walks of life would gather at the market square on Sundays, where traders sold fresh produce, handcrafted jewelry, and colorful woven baskets. It was a place where stories were shared, gossip traded, and connections formed. But all that changed when Tadiwa returned to the village. Tadiwa was once the pride of Tanzala, a young man with ambition and dreams that stretched beyond the borders of the village. As a merchant, he had ventured into the larger cities, traded in distant lands, and amassed a fortune. For years, no one had heard from him, and many thought he had forgotten his roots. But one scorching afternoon, he appeared, driving a gleaming white ox-drawn cart into the heart of the village, accompanied by a woman who seemed to shine as brightly as the midday sun. Her name was Anaya *. She was not from Tanzala, nor had anyone seen someone like her before. Tall, graceful, and impossibly beautiful, Anaya's skin glowed like polished mahogany, her hair cascading down her back in thick coils. The moment she stepped out of the cart, she seemed to command the attention of every person in the village. The air felt thick with awe, and even the birds seemed to stop singing, as if acknowledging her presence. Now, I must tell you, my friends, the people of Tanzala were not strangers to beauty. We've seen many fine women come and go, but there was something about Anaya that felt different. Strange, even. I remember the day Tadiwa introduced her to the village elders, Mazi Kofi, the wise elder of the village, and Mama Zawadi *, the matriarch who had seen the rise and fall of many generations. Tadiwa, wearing a proud smile, spoke of the wealth he had gathered and the fortune he would bring to the village. His voice rang with excitement, but there was a hint of something, nervousness, perhaps. Anaya stood beside him, her serene smile never faltering. She greeted the elders with such grace that even Mama Zawadi, who rarely showed emotion, gave a soft nod in approval. But her eyes, wise as they were, never left Anaya. It was almost as if she was searching for something that she couldn't find. In the weeks that followed, Tadiwa's wealth and influence spread throughout Tanzala. He built new homes, gave gifts to the villagers, and even donated a large sum to the construction of the new granary. But, for all the attention Tadiwa received, it was Anaya who seemed to be the true center of the village's fascination. She never ventured far from their home, yet her presence was felt everywhere. People would whisper about her beauty, the way her laughter would echo across the river at sunset, and how her eyes, dark like the midnight sky, held a mysterious depth. But it wasn't just her beauty that drew people in, there was something more. A magnetism, a power that felt otherworldly. I remember the day I first spoke with Tadiwa about Anaya. It was at the market, just after the sun had dipped behind the hills, casting a warm glow over the village. Tadiwa had come to buy some fish, and I, being a vendor of smoked meat, was nearby. We exchanged pleasantries, and I asked him how his marriage was treating him. Anaya, he said, his voice full of admiration, she is everything I ever dreamed of. She brings a peace to my heart I never knew before. I've never been so at ease. At first, I didn't think much of it. We all know how love can make a man feel as though the world is at his feet. But there was something in his voice that troubled me. His words were sincere, but there was a hint of fear I couldn't place. A few days later, I visited Tadiwa's compound, hoping to see him in person. It was then that I noticed how the house had changed. Where once there was laughter and activity, there was now an eerie silence. Tadiwa had become a man of few words, always looking over his shoulder as though something was watching him. Anaya would often disappear into their quarters, and no one dared to approach her. The villagers began to gossip, whispers that could be heard during the evening prayers by the river or in the small gatherings at the marketplace. Some said she was a witch asterisk. Others claimed she had a spell over Tadiwa asterisk. But the truth remained hidden, like the shadow of the baobab tree that stretched far longer than anyone could measure. And then the misfortune began. One morning, the elders received word that Tadiwa's wealth was beginning to dwindle. The merchants' caravans were being robbed along the trade routes. His investments fell into ruin. Even the land he had purchased began to lose its fertility. The crops died, and the rains stopped. A heavy drought took hold of the land, and the once bustling village started to suffer. But in the midst of all this, Anaya remained untouched. She continued to wear her radiant smile, to walk through the village as though nothing had changed. It was as if she had become a ghost, existing on the edges of reality. Tadiwa, consumed with worry, would often come to the elders for advice, but the solution seemed to elude him. Mzee Kofi, who had seen the rise and fall of many men in his time, pulled Tadiwa aside one evening and gave him a warning. "Your wealth, son, is tied to something darker than you know. If you do not seek the truth, you will lose everything." Tadiwa didn't listen, though. He thought that if he could only please Anaya, things would return to normal. So, he continued to indulge her every whim, even as his life crumbled around him. One evening, when the moon was full and the stars shone brighter than ever, the truth finally came to light. I was passing by Tadiwa's home when I heard voices, low, murmuring, coming from inside. I had grown used to the odd sounds, but tonight, something felt different. I stood quietly outside their door, listening. And then, I heard it, the chanting. Tadiwa's voice trembled with fear, but it was the voice of Anaya that sent a chill down my spine. Her words were in a language I had never heard, ancient and powerful. I dared not listen too closely, but what I heard made my heart race. She was not of this world asterisk. She had brought a curse upon him, using her beauty to bind his soul to a spirit far older than anything in Tanzala. In that moment, I realized, Tadiwa was not the one in control. He had never been. Anaya had ensnared him, not with her beauty, but with something darker. The next day, the village gathered to discuss the growing concerns. Word had spread of Tadiwa's downfall, and many feared that the drought and misfortune were tied to Anaya's presence. Mama Zawadi, the matriarch, made a bold decision to confront the couple. As she approached their home, her voice rang out, calling for Tadiwa to face the truth. The villagers gathered behind her, each of them holding their breath as the door opened. Tadiwa stood there, looking more broken than I had ever seen him. Anaya stood beside him, her smile as serene as ever. Before anyone could speak, Mzee Kofi stepped forward and raised his hand. It is time for the truth to be known. And so, the elders performed a ritual of revelation, one that uncovered the dark spirit Anaya had bound to Tadiwa's wealth. The villagers, in unison, broke the curse by exposing the truth. Anaya, realizing her hold was lost, fled into the night, never to be seen again. Tadiwa, devastated, returned to his humble beginnings. The land began to recover, slowly but surely. Crops grew, the rains returned, and the village of Tanzala began to heal. As for Tadiwa, he lived the rest of his days in quiet humility. He never spoke of Anaya again. But the people of Tanzala, we remembered. And every year, on the night of the full moon, we gathered under the baobab tree to give thanks for the lessons learned. For we knew that in the shadows of beauty, there can sometimes lie the darkest of secrets.